All right, I'm going to do my best at since a couple of people had requested it, a start to finish tutorial on the Ashes of Perfection here, the 2.0 version. Um, it may not end up 100% like this one just because it's very, very trial and error, these builds that I do, but I'm going to do my best to get it back to 100% from start to finish. And I'm just going off photos that I have of each part here. So let me get started here. It's not too hard of a build. The biggest thing you're going to really want to make sure that you have down for this build is the rock hopper and vent offset glitches, or techniques if you want to get particular and say they're not a glitch. I think they are, but some people don't. So starting out, I just have the landing thruster here. I always use the Magfield landing thruster. You can pretty much use whatever you want, but that's the one I'm using. And you're just going to place it right on the center of the starting X. It, again, doesn't matter what hab type you use, but you want a double hab here. And you're going to place that to where the landing gear is like right under the front piece of that. And then from there, one more single up front, and then off the back would be the Thunderbird. That is important with the way I've built this because no other landing bay or entry point is going to work. So, yeah, you're going to want that one. And then I did use the Titan class for this one. Cockpit, that is. And then let me get my photos pulled up here. Bear with me if I'm doing a lot of thinking out loud. Like I said, I'm trying to rebuild this myself by doing this, and this will only be the second time that I've tried to rebuild this. So, starting out, just to get a framework going, I would start with, once you've got your habs set up, again, just a double right here, with the front of the double right above the landing gear there. Single right here, and then your Thunderbird landing bay. All right, so once you get all that set up to get the start of the shape done, we're going to take a Aeron blade here and place it so that it is right parallel, right lined up with that landing gear. If you can see that, you have the tip just barely going past the cockpit there. So that's the starting point, and then, like I said, a lot of offset glitches or techniques, whatever you want to call it. So for that, to get the other part of this blade lined up, because we've got 4 blades in total, we just need to place any kind of hab module, and then take any kind of vent piece. We need to move this over just a bit here. And, actually, no, going the wrong way. Yeah, this needs to go in just a bit. There we go. So, yeah, you use the half offset technique to get this to where it's kind of like halfway inside. You see the way it's lined up there. And then the way you want it lined up, you see how the front of the blade is sticking out a little here, so we know this is too far forward. So, fix that using the rock hopper here. Make sure it's on the right side. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the rock hopper or offset, this is going to be confusing to you. So again, you want to make sure you have that down. But all we're doing is using the rock hopper to realign the part where we want it so that we can get this part to line up where we want it. And that's how you want it to line up. All right, so you just want to make sure you've got this smooth along here, or as smooth as it can get. There's going to be a little bit of a jut there, but that's fine. And then to make it easy, once you get that one, you can literally just duplicate that hab module, move it over to the other side, and bam. All right, so that is more or less the starting shape. I almost wish that I was recording when I first tried rebuilding this, because actually was going very smooth. Okay, so we'll start with this part next. All right, so to get the shape of the body going, grab a hab module, just place it up top. It doesn't really, for the most part, matter where you place it to start because we're going to be using some offset again to move it over. Get this next part placed here. So just use the vent here again to offset this. And I apologize if I'm like flying through placing these parts here. Like I said, it's really going to help if you already know the offset method really well. If you don't, I've got a video that kind of highlights it, and I know quite a few others have it as well. So highly recommend learning that and getting that down for this because it'll make this a lot easier. So what I want to do is move this back a step again using the rock hopper because we're going to take our Speedbird nacelle for this top part and we want this to be a little bit further back than that, I believe. Let me reference my photo. Yes. So it needs to be one more step back. Let's take the rock hopper again. So as you can see right now, it's lined up with the very front edge of the double hab that I placed. So a better, more specific reference, you want it a half step back from the starting front part of that double hab. All right, and then you take your Speedbird nacelle, place that down like that. All right, so if you've done it right, another indicator will be that the top piece of the Titan cockpit here is going to be these little three pieces sticking out. So that means you've got that in the right spot. So that's lined up. What I would actually do is leave that side because we're going to do another bit of a rock hopper half step move here to get this next part down. Okay, and if you don't know the glitch again, you can end up to where you don't have the side you need uncovered. There's a couple ways I could approach that to fix that. What I'm going to do is just place a hab on top of that one to move it where I need it to be, which I believe we need to go a half step forward. And then I can just place the part that I need using that top one as a kind of alignment piece. And then we're going to need the turbine aerofoil. And you see how that kind of merges in to the Speedbird nacelle here. So that's what we're looking for. And then we can just duplicate that, connect over here, duplicate the Speedbird, and bam. Okay. You can see the front's starting to kind of take shape here. And like I said, as a disclaimer, this may not end up 100% like my original build because it's very trial and error when I build stuff. So I'm never 100% sure how it's built and can go off photos all day long, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get it 100% rebuilding it. But it'll be pretty close. So this next part, as you can see, I'm placing another hab module right at the back of this. There is a, where is it? Arcadia blade on this little front section here. So we need to, again, use a hab module and a bunch of offsetting to force the part to line up where we want it. In this case, you're going to half step down, as you saw me do with the vent there. And then I'm going to use the rock hopper again, make sure it's on the right side, and get this moved forward. I think right there should do. All right, let's see if we've got it where we want it. Okay, that's too far forward, so move it back just a little bit. And let's see, perfect. Okay, so that's where you want that part lining up, is right off the edge of that blade, just back a little bit to where it's pretty much lined up with the cockpit. In fact, it's lined up. If we use this hab module, I can show you, or should be able to maybe. Okay, it's lined up with these parts right here. How we have those half step or off to the side. It's in line with that. So that's how far forward you want it. But again, we're just putting it a half step down from the very top here. See, it's a half step down using event. And then once we've got it lined up, we take our Arcadia blade, and that goes right into that spot there. And that kind of smooths out this gap right here. And then a nice trick when you're working with symmetrical builds and all these offset movements and everything, instead of having to repeat all that over there, you can literally just build a bridge with hab modules over to where you need it. Delete the bridge pieces, and bam. All right, now this is where it's going to get a little bit trickier for me. Bring up my other photos here. So I just took a series of new photos on an area I was having a hard time recreating. Let's see here. Here we are. Okay, so this part's not too hard. For the most part, the rest of this, you've already got all the basic lined up parts you need. But we're going to take the Argonaut cowling, and that just connects right to that Arcadia blade that we just placed. And we can go ahead and do that on both sides. Alright, coming along. I believe there's another, yeah, right connected to the back of that one, another Argonaut cowling. So again, just do that on both sides. Alright, those are all put together now. And then connected off the very back of this, which I will warn, we may have to redo or undo some of this for the engine part, because that's a little bit tricky with some offsetting, but I'm just at least going through getting the body parts all lined up here. So we're taking that turbine aerofoil right off the back of these Argonaut cowlings here. So far, if you've been following along, this is what yours should look like. Alright, so hopefully this has been clear so far. And then we'll go off the top here. So connecting on the top pieces, we're going to use a Speedbird fairing, once again right off the back of the Speedbird nacelle. And you can go ahead and do that on both sides. Just like that. And I believe off the back of that, yeah, another Speedbird nacelle. This is actually overall going a lot smoother than my first rebuild attempt, so that's good. Honestly, this almost looks kind of cool right now, if you wanted to just create something different from this point. Okay, what else do we got here? Alright, so getting the upper portion of this body line done is not too hard. Once again, we're going to use some offset on the very, very top here. Lots and lots of offset. Let's see if I can find a connecting point. This will work. Okay, so this one we want to be just a half step higher than the rest. Alright, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to place one that's 2 steps above and use a vent to go a half step down. And there we go. Okay, so again, we want this to be just a half step above all of these pieces here. Alright, and for this upper level of the body line, the main part is going to be this Vesper aerofoil. Let's see if we've lined it up right. Nope, not quite. Okay, so we want it back behind these pieces here. So again, rock hopper module. Okay, that's the side we need. I think we need to go back just a half a step. If I can get that to connect. There we go. So 1 step back. Now The Vesper aerofoil should be where I want it. Yep, there we go. Okay, you see how that's just a little bit of a gap between that point as a reference there. That's where you want it. And then we're going to move this back another half step, but this is going to be in the way. So to do that, connect the hab module off the back, grab the rock hopper again. Then we're going to move this so it's just a half step in, and that will allow us to place another one of these merged right into the first one like this. Actually, sorry, slight correction on this part. I just remembered I had to correct that. This is the part we want. Not a Vesper aerofoil Speedbird diffuser, but a half step merged in between there. All right, and then once you've got those, you can just duplicate that and flip them, and there you go. So you've got that starting upper body line there. Now for the rest of the upper body line leading into the engines, I've used engine covers here. I don't know if these will quite line up. Yeah, it looks like they might actually, to where we don't have to place another hab module. But I would, because we're going to do another one of these, but a half step back again just to merge them together. But I think since we're at this point, what I'm going to do actually is get the engine section built up so you can kind of see how that works, and so we can start connecting parts into that. So for that one, any single hab module will do off the back of that Thunderbird landing bay. That is the distance between the parts for the engine that we want. But the central engine piece is off-centered just a little bit so that it, well, centered rather, but to get it centered, we have to make it off-centered from the hab module. So once again, starting off the back of that Thunderbird landing bay, place that and then a vent off the very back, and that will let you move that up just a half a step there. And then we can get rid of this. Now that would be too far back. So there again, we need to use the rock hopper to realign the part. Just make sure that's connected and slide that back just a half a step there. Now, the central part of the engine is a Kineostream thruster, however you say that. And this is where it does get a little bit tricky. It's not too difficult, still just using offsets. But what we're going to need to do here is let's start from the top one. And I think that might actually work. Let me see if it might be too far. Yeah, it's too far. Okay, so what we need is, there we go, a vent, and this is where I figured these parts being here might make it tricky. That is the one thing when I rebuilt this earlier. I built the engine first, but this will work. All we need to do is get the vent piece to be like this off the back of that hab module so that we can move that up just a half step there. And I would definitely do the top and bottom of the engine parts first, and then left and right here. So there again, we move that up a half step, and then the same as usual, rock hopper to realign it. There we go. And that, once that's lined up like that, will allow us to place an Aeron drive on the underside of that hab module, like so. If you've done it right, it'll be merged into that engine piece. And then we need to get another one of these placed under it. And it's not going to let us do that easily, so we have to force it with the vent piece. Same concept. Get it to where you can get it off the front of the back. Move it down a half step. We're going to need to repeat that one more time. Down a half step. Okay. Now, go back to your rock hopper and get that slid backwards until it's lined up with the back of the central engine thruster here. And then we just place our... do we need to go down again? No. That's fine. Yeah. As long as you've got it merged to where those parts are right there, like you want... Yeah. You want those to be merged inside that. That's when you know you've lined it up, right? Now we can get rid of this hab. And that's half the engine there. And then we're just doing the same process, but on left and right to get 4 of them lined up together. And for this one, I might, just to make it easier on myself. This is where it'll get tricky and why I said I would do the top and the bottom first, because getting rid of those hab modules on the inside gets to be a little challenging. Let's see if we can just use a vent to get that out of there. Because this one, it's the same concept, but we need it offset on the left and right instead of up and down. So we've got our vent there. Okay, we do want that to stay central to this engine piece here. I think I might have misaligned that. Yeah. Okay. So again, for this part, you want it to stay in line here with the engine piece, but offset to the left or the right. Doesn't really matter whether you start with left or right first, but you just need to get it offset to the left or the right a little. And there again, repeat the same thing on the other side. Let me see if I can build a bridge over to it. Not quite. So I'm going to have to use the vent to merge that part. Some of this might require you to do some troubleshooting like I'm doing. But concept-wise, it's the same. Okay, I think that should be lined up. Let me see, but I think... Let's see here. Vent piece might be stuck inside there. Hope it's not, but if it is, it is. Okay. Yeah, that's... Oh, no, there it is. It popped up. Right there. Okay. So that's the engine section right there. Not too hard. Sorry if that was at all jumbled or confusing. Again, bear with me, trial and error build. So doing my best to make this concise here, but may not be 100% perfect to the original build, but you can at least get 90% of the way there and maybe make some of your own adjustments as you go through. Okay, so to get this last bit of the kind of spine, so to speak, like I said, we need to grab a hab module and again slide that back just a half step from the other piece we've placed, like so. And then we can merge this one into it, but I actually have it flipped like this. So instead of having it facing that way, if you can see the kind of direction of it or the curve, so to speak, instead of that, you're going to want to flip it, rotate it, and have it placed like this. That just makes it a little more straight. And then we can just duplicate that. And if it will cooperate, there we go. So the first one, we do want the smaller part of the curve facing back. And the second one, you just flip it and have that curve in the middle, and there you go. So that's about 90, well, that's all of the top section for the most part here. Now, like I said, there might be a little bit missing. If there's anything you want to try to add, you're more than welcome to. And then I did fuse some of these Medusa class reactors into the spine on my original build, like this. These little spots here where it lets you. You just got to kind of figure out where they are. And it merges in really nicely to where you can't even really see them. And another one back here, but this one's being tricky. Yeah, I guess that'll work. Right there. Why not? Would like to have 4 of them, but it's not cooperating. Okay, now let me check the underside. of my build here, and then we are pretty much done. I mean, this really isn't, as far as some of my builds go, too complicated. Just took more photos of the underside too. In fact, actually, I remember one main thing. Okay, so huge chunk of the underside is just Speedbird cowling. But if you'll notice, if we were to place this right here, that's going to cover up this landing bay completely. So you can't get into the ship. So this was more or less just a starting marker, anchor point, this landing gear right here. So for now, go ahead and delete that. Grab yourself a hab module, and we need to slide that back just 1/2 step. So again, good old rock hopper. I think we need to do it on this side. Yeah. So just slide that back 1/2 step. That's not a half step. Wrong side. There we go. 1/2 step. And then slide your Speedbird cowling back a 1/2 step. And if you see, there's just barely a little opening there. All right, and then we're just taking another one of these off the front. Actually, first, sorry. Now that you've got that, you can replace your landing gear, and it will merge right into the middle of these two Speedbird cowlings and just kind of disappear there. All right, so that's getting the bottom shape all put together here. Here again, we go back to the half-step method. What we want to do is merge a Speedbird nacelle into the middle of this cowling. So very simply, once again, going for a vent here, or diffuser. That's not where I want that. There we go. All right, so the goal, the concept, that's the important thing. How you get there doesn't matter, but we want this to be halfway in the middle of this. And I think that's a little too far forward, but let me grab a nacelle here and check it out. Again, it's the Speedbird nacelle. Let me go in so I can show you again which one that is. Same one as on top. And we want that, of course, upside down, and that is, as I thought it would be, too far forward. So, rock hopper module again. You just slide that back 1/2 step. Because with this bottom one, instead of having it stick out just a little bit, well, actually, I guess the top one is lined up as well. So we're trying to just line it up with the bottom of the Titan cockpit there, which will line it up with the Speedbird nacelle completely. So you're just, or not nacelle, cowling right here. So you're just merging it right on top of that, like so. See, it's a 1/2 step inside of it, lined perfectly up front to back. That's how you want that. And then you can just copy it and repeat it onto that side. I believe off the back of that, where's my photo here? Is that off the back of that? I think it is. I'm pretty sure right off the back of that one here is the turbine aerofoil again. Let me check. No, it does. Okay. Yeah. You are using a turbine aerofoil, but this one is actually connected off the direct back of the Speedbird cowling. That's back here. So you just connect that right off to the side. And that will leave a little bit of this sticking off to the edge. So I believe what I used was this part. I'll have to double check that. Okay. Oh. Not that one. Super Cruise aerofoil. Slight correction. So connected to... Yeah. Connected to the bottom there is the Super Cruise aerofoil on the front and the back. Like so. Okay, so on the other side again. Not the turbine aerofoil Super Cruise connected right to the Speedbird, and then another one going off the front like that. And then we need to get the turbine aerofoil to connect off the bottom of this one, but you'll see we can't just do that. It's not going to auto connect to it, so once again, a little offset glitching. But the goal is to line it up with the turbine aerofoil that we already have there. So you just use the rock hopper, the vent, whatever you need to use. I think I can do it by just moving this back. Let's slide it and see. That should be far enough back. Perfect. Alright. Now you can see, once I remove this, how that just smooths into there, like so. And then we can just take, I believe, I once again didn't get photos of this, but I believe I just used this Argonaut cowling to connect in the rest of these parts, like so. And then we could probably use this. Really doesn't matter for the most part, but I think that'll work. Looks nice. Yeah. That rounds out the bottom real nicely. May not have been what I actually did, but that's what we're doing. So same concept here. We need to take a hab module, find a good connecting point. Should have used my trick method here. I think I can, yeah. It'll let me connect it off of this Argonaut cowling right here. So connect the hab module to the Argonaut cowling and get that rotated back. Nice and lined up there. And get rid of that. Grab our Argonaut cowlings. Go ahead and connect those off of there. And Arcadia blade. And again, of course, if you're rebuilding this, you could take some liberties with it, do what you want, it'll be your ship. Okay, now all we're missing is a weapon system, which you can obviously use whatever you want. We'll see if it'll let it line up with the placement I had, which was right under the wings here. This would be a good testament to if my parts are lined up the way I had them. Not quite, but that's okay. I just like tucking guns in and kind of hiding them into the body. So that's a good spot right there. If it'll let me... There we go. Only problem with doing this level of merging, when there's all these parts merged together, is you end up with a just absolute ridiculous amount of connecting points. So it does make things a little tricky. And then hopefully this will work, but I did like on my build having this torpedo launcher right off the underside. Just kind of, there it was. There we go. It's a nice look, just having the rocket right off the bottom there. And that is it. So now, do whatever color you want, of course. I did metallic finish, dark gray and gray, apply to entire, and bam. There is the ashes of perfection. So hopefully that was clear. Hopefully my my borderline ADHD wasn't making this impossible to follow. But I mean, you can pause it, rewind it, hear me, think out loud over and over again until you figure it out. I did actually, I just remembered, if it'll let me, I had these merged in on the underside. Yeah, so this is definitely not 100% to my actual build, because these merged nice and flush into here. But there should be enough connecting points that you can find a spot. If you want, you don't really have to have these shield upgrades here, but let me see, that should work. Yeah, you just hide it off right there. Doesn't have to be shown. On mine it's like partially showing because I thought that looked cool, but it's more important what it does than how it looks for these parts. Just stick that in there. Okay. And that is it. That is the ashes of perfection. So hopefully you were able to rebuild off of this or come up with your own ideas along the way, inspiration, whatever. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Oh, last thing. I will note, even on the rebuild, it'll be this way. The only way you can get inside this is this little gap right here. Works perfectly fine, but if you try coming off to the side here, that's not going to work. So just this little gap. Oh, this is important too. I'm glad I didn't end the video just yet. This chair on the inside. I highly recommend putting a chair or something, some kind of chair you can actually sit in right in this spot. And the reason is, if you try to beam aboard the ship from the ground or anything, you will end up behind these engine pieces and unable to get out. So this chair is a lifesaver. So definitely put a chair there if you follow the build. Yeah, you're going to want that. But yeah, hopefully this worked. Thanks for watching.